On December 11th, 2024, Disney announced my worst nightmare, Tangled, their only modern animated masterpiece, in my humble opinion, would be subject to the curse of a live-action remake. I would give anything to stop this from happening. I don't think a live-action Tangled should exist. Well, at least in the way that Disney currently makes their live actions. Yes, Tangled is like one of my favorite movies and I don't want them to ruin it, but Tangled is also suited to animation and I think it's gonna be awkward to tell this story realistically. Disney also often fails to capture the heart of their original animations, and Tangled just does not deserve this treatment, especially when Disney can't seem to get their hair right. So even though we're getting a remake anyway, I'm going to argue to you why we shouldn't be and what Disney should do instead. First, Tangled's story is meant for animation. The live action will have to heavily rely on CGI for several elements to tell the same story. CGI isn't bad in general at all, but Disney often uses it excessively, and it often makes their live actions feel artificial. In The Little Mermaid, it's obvious that there were several scenes that needed a lot more time to render. For Tangled, the most obvious problem area is going to be her 70 feet of golden hair. I think this has a huge risk of looking odd. Even without CGI, Disney consistently struggles with princess hair, and I don't know why. Rachel Zegler's bob for the upcoming Snow White movie is so offensive. Truly, I don't know who did this to her, and I still think that Ariel's hair should have been a bit of a brighter red to contrast the blue of the underwater, because that was one of the main reasons why Ariel's hair was so red in the animation. And then on the other end of the spectrum, you have Mulan, who has perfect hair even though she's in a battlefield. So I'm not optimistic that they're going to get Rapunzel's hair right. But it's crucial that her hair does look good, because her hair isn't just a part of her iconic Disney princess look, it's central to her story. Her entire arc surrounds her hair, and it's an extension of her character. Her hair is a part of the action, it grabs things, it carries her. They're going to have to recreate all these action scenes with CGI hair, and I just think it's going to look a little goofy with a real person. And a big reason is that in animation, you can kind of suspend your disbelief a lot easier. The physics don't have to make as much sense because it's not 100% realistic. It doesn't look weird when Rapunzel is swinging on her hair. You don't think about it hurting her scalp. But in live action, we're a lot quicker to judge when something doesn't look right or doesn't seem feasible. And this is a huge reason why I think Tangled is just suited to animation. It's definitely possible to make her hair look good. I just think it's risky. Rapunzel's hair is also magical and it glows, which could also look very questionable depending on how they do it. If you look at Tinkerbell from the Peter Pan and Wendy movie, I mean, she's supposed to glow and you can barely see her. I was thinking maybe they'll keep her hair braided up somehow so that they can avoid some of the awkward logistics, but then you would lose her transformation in the kingdom and then reverting back with Mother Gothel and her undoing all of that growth. So her hairstyle is actually quite important to the story, so I don't think they can keep it braided up for the whole time. Like I said, it's not impossible to do her hair well. I just think it's going to be quite a challenge considering that hair is one of the most difficult things to animate, let alone realistic hair. For Tangled, actually, they had to generate completely new computer animation systems just to manage her hair. And I don't know if Disney is up for the same challenge for their live actions, considering they can't even replicate a real-life 1930s hairstyle. Another massive element that is more suited to animation is the floating lights scene. This part of the movie is so beautiful. It's like one of my favorite parts. I want to do this so badly, but this is going to have to be completely CGI'd in the movie. And I can already picture them filming this scene in an artificial pool that's like surrounded by a green screen. And of course, like what else are they going to do? They can't light 1,000 lanterns into the sky. But I think that's my point, is that if this story was made for live action, Rapunzel would have a different goal that was more feasible to film. And that's why you just keep the magic in the animation. And I think with so many of the romantic live action nighttime scenes that Disney's done, they've been disappointing for me. I remember being so disappointed with the Kiss the Girl scene because you can barely see what's happening. And there are these fireflies, which you'd think would add some nice lighting, but not really. And then there's the Whole New World scene, which is one of my favorite songs of Disney's. It's like like pitch black. Like I can't even see Jasmine and Aladdin. And this is supposed to be so romantic. Thankfully, I See the Light requires lighting for this romantic scene. So maybe that's a positive thing. But I just don't know if they can capture this same beauty or romance. They'll probably still have to pare it down so that it looks a little bit more believable. And again, animation is so great for this scene because you can make this so extreme and so intense. And another aspect of Tangled that is also suited to animation more is the animals. And this goes for most of the Disney live actions. The animal sidekicks just typically are better in the animations, or they might remove Pascal and Maximus completely. The one thing they have going for them is that Pascal and Maximus don't talk. So I think they could easily just make a realistic horse and chameleon. But if we do that, we're going to lose a lot of the humor between Flynn and Maximus, which I think is such an entertaining part of the story. But I also really don't want to see that be CGI'd. But regardless of whether this story can be told in live action or not, I want to just go through the problems that Disney remakes tend to have in general and how this is specifically going to apply to Tangled negatively. The first problem Disney tends to have with the remakes is a lack of visual style. There is so much charm and magic and whimsy in these Disney animations, but the live actions just fail to capture a lot of this artistry, if you will. If we look at the Little Mermaid remake, for example, a lot of the coloring is very desaturated and it looks quite sad. I even have a whole video on that topic. In Aladdin, they had such a cool opportunity to make authentic Arabian and South Asian sets, but a lot of the sets sort of look cheap and plasticky. And then you have Snow White with these terrifying CGI dwarves. Tangled, in all its sunny gloriousness, is probably going to get the same sad, dull treatment. And I just can't have that. Like, could you imagine going from this beautiful animation to such a sad live action? I just can't. Tangled's world is so quaint. It really feels like a fairy tale. There is such a distinct vibe of this movie that I love so much. If you want to hear me talk about the way this movie looks for half an hour, I would just go watch my Wish video that compares Wish to Tangled and why Tangled is like significantly better in every single way. It's so frustrating to me, I think, because it's not that Disney can't capture this magic, but it's because they don't try to. Even when they used to. I think that Maleficent 1 looks fairly cinematic, and I've talked about how much I love Aurora's dresses before. And then we have Cinderella. This movie looks so magnificent, and I have a whole video just raving about every single piece of this movie. And it just makes me so sad to think of what we started with and where we have ended up. And especially for a movie as visually captivating as Tangled, it really deserves to look beautiful, especially because things like lighting and color really key to Tangled's story. Lighting, for example, reflects Rapunzel's personality and her magic and her connection to the sun. And I really hope that this movie takes that into consideration. Like, this lighting should be strategic and beautiful, not non-existent or overly bright. Another problem Disney remakes tend to have, which you would absolutely know by now if you follow my channel, but I am consistently let down by their costume choices and their set design. The princesses have dresses that just don't feel fairy tale enough. But I mean, like, the upcoming Snow White dress is so disappointing. I hope they give Rapunzel an actual corset because she has one in her animated movie, and corsets aren't bad. Just make sure to not tight lace it. And then for the sets, Tangled has very iconic sets. The tower, the Snuggly Duckling, the kingdom. And I said this a little bit before, but a lot of their sets sort of look like theater sets, or they just don't look authentic. And I don't want to feel that when I'm watching a movie. I want to feel like I'm actually watching a real life story happen. I would love to see production design at the level of Barbie or Oz, you know, something really immersive. And then apart from the visuals, I think another issue that Disney remakes tend to have is casting problems. In my opinion, I don't think a lot of the Disney princesses have been cast well. Currently, as I'm making this video, Florence Pugh is rumored to be the front runner for Rapunzel. And again, nothing is confirmed. This is a total rumor. And I love Florence, okay? Do not get me wrong. I think she's a phenomenal actress. She's been amazing in everything I've seen her in. But I just don't think she is Rapunzel. The other person that keeps floating around is Sabrina Carpenter. Now, I also love Sabrina. I've made a couple videos about her. I think she is so adorable, but I also don't think she would be the best Rapunzel. Rapunzel needs a very strong aura of innocence and someone who's very naive, but also bubbly and bouncy. And I think that both Florence and Sabrina, they're almost too mature. Florence especially, that girl just knows life. You know what I mean? She's so wise. And then Sabrina, she's almost just too confident in a way. Now, I know that these girls are actresses, and so they can become different people and they can act in different ways. But I think even if you are a great actress, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're right for any role. The only person that comes to my mind who would have been a really good Rapunzel back in her earlier days would be Amanda Seyfried. Just that sense of innocence and like natural youthfulness, I guess. The other only correct option is actually to cast me, mainly just because I want to marry whoever they cast as Flynn Rider, and then we'll both elope, and then the production never has to get made. Which, on that note, by the way, I don't know who they're gonna cast as Flynn Rider. Flynn Rider is a very iconic Disney prince, okay? You have got to get him right, and it is very hard. He cannot just be any hot guy, but he must specifically be very hot. And he has to have very specific level of charisma and humor and this cheeky charm that is not easily found. Okay, so I don't know. That's gonna be a real tricky one. If they cast Timothée Chalamet, I don't know what I'll do with myself. I also hope they cast actual singers because I love this music and it deserves justice. Disney also tends to have some problems with their writing storytelling and often weaken the original message of the animation. Tangled's live action script is reportedly going to be written by Jennifer Robinson, who has done movies like Do Revenge and Thor: Love and Thunder. And this worries me a little bit because Do Revenge, the first 2/3 I think are really great, but the last act is a little all over the place. It doesn't really come together that neatly in the end. And then Thor: Love and Thunder, I haven't personally seen that movie, but I do know it got very mixed reviews, specifically because there was a lot of humor in it, and the humor was very slapstick and over the top, and a lot of people weren't vibing with that. I think this is specifically where I am getting a little nervous because Tangled is a funny movie, but it's specifically not slapstick humor. It's very witty. And so I'm worried that they're going to just amp up the humor to be so extreme and very young. I mean, who knows? I don't want to judge too soon, although that's what I'm doing in this entire video, but you know. I think Disney live actions also tend to change the original princesses quite a bit without really understanding the character. Like, for example, in the live action Aladdin, Jasmine wants to rule the kingdom instead of just simply wanting freedom. In The Little Mermaid, Ariel saves Eric, which is supposed to be this sort of girl boss moment, I guess, because, you know, she doesn't have to rely on a guy to save her. But the point of Eric saving Ariel in the original is not about that. It is specifically about a human saving a mermaid. So taking that out of the story is quite problematic because Triton now has less of a reason to trust Ariel that humans aren't all bad, to end up giving her her legs in the end of the movie. And I have a whole video on that too. And then upcoming, we have Snow White, who seems to want to overthrow the government, which is great. I mean, the evil queen is evil, but Snow White's story is about generosity and resilience, not leadership. And I'm just nervous that they're going to change Rapunzel in a similar way. I could easily see them thinking that Rapunzel isn't progressive enough because she needs a guy to give her directions, or because Flynn does most of the fighting while she's weighed down by her hair, or that her dream isn't impressive enough because it's just about floating lights and not about achieving independence or whatever. But not every princess or story is about power and leadership. Strength comes in many forms, and there is honestly so much strength in Rapunzel's act of trusting Flynn to step outside of her comfort zone and to change her perspective of a world she was brainwashed to be afraid of. And even though her dream is simple, it's meaningful to her. Your dream doesn't have to be super complex to be important or be driven by intense ambition to rule or something. And Rapunzel achieves her dream despite adversity and finds love along the way. I hope that they see that she's actually quite a strong character. I just don't know if they will. If Rapunzel also wants to rule a kingdom, or they make her a super independent fighter, even though she's never been in the outside world, I will not be happy. If you follow my channel, you would know that I love female characters who can fight. I love female characters who are masculine and aggressive and quote girl bosses. I really just love female characters who are well written. I just don't like it when Disney changes their princesses when it doesn't really make sense for the story. Obviously, I have no idea if they're gonna change Rapunzel's character, but given the direction of Jasmine and Mulan and Ariel and Snow White, I wouldn't be surprised, and that makes me sad. I think we need these Disney remakes to either visually resemble the original animation, or at least authentically bring it to life, or improve the story in some way. I am not super confident that they will do justice to the visuals, and in my opinion, Tangled's story is already pretty perfect. I don't know how you can improve it. Tangled does not need a remake. Plus, Tangled was only released 15 years ago in 2010. At least the other animations that were made into live actions were made before the turn of the century. Like, I feel like it's too soon to be remaking Tangled. And if they're going to remake a more modern movie, I'm surprised they didn't choose to remake The Princess and the Frog first. I actually think The Princess and the Frog could really benefit from a live action adaptation. I love The Princess and the Frog up until Tiana turns into a frog. I think the story gets a little bit derailed from that point, and I think that we can improve it. Or alternatively, they could make a live action Rapunzel and it not be based on Tangled. That would actually help the story a lot. You could set it anywhere in the world and change the story in whatever way and make something new, which would be super exciting. Or you can base it on Tangled and just give it the Cinderella treatment, making sure that everything looks fantastic. Maybe hire Kenneth Branagh again, who directed Cinderella. Right now, Michael Gracie is in talks to be the director, and he did The Greatest Showman, so perhaps there's hope. And lastly, the alternative solution to this Tangled debacle is to just not make it at all and write a completely new story. I think that one has my vote. I'm ready for some new creativity from Disney. I know I am totally jumping the gun here with this video by being so negative, and the movie isn't even in production, but I'm just going based on past evidence. I think if I enjoyed a lot of Disney live actions, I wouldn't be so passionate about this announcement. I just really believe that if they can't create the same level of magic or elevate the original story in some way, why remake it? And I know the answer is money, but why can't they make money and good art? I love Tangled so much. I love this movie. It's like one of my favorite movies of all time, and I should be really excited about seeing this story again, but I'm not. I don't think my opinion matters that much though, because these live actions continue to make boatloads of money. So I don't think they're going to change anything, but I really hope that we can look back on this video and laugh and think it was a horrible take. I hope this entire video ages poorly. That is my goal, actually. And I know we'll still have the animation and nothing can ever ruin that, but I just don't think we should settle for less. After what happened with Arcane, I just don't think I can suffer another heartbreak. Okay, that was one of my favorite things, and season 2 just made me so upset. And if you've seen my wish video, you might remember that I said at the very end that one day I will make an extravagantly long video about why Tangled is like a perfect movie, and I meant it. It could be next week, it could be in 5 years. I don't know when I'm gonna get around to it, but I have not forgotten. Let me know if you think Tangled should stay animated or if I'm just crazy. And like, how would you approach the live action? Yeah, let me know what you think. But I think we all know what I think, which is that just let her be. She's happy, I'm happy. I hope you enjoyed my little rants and thoughts. Subscribe for more. I hope you guys have a lovely night, and thank you so much for watching.